They said their love was so strong that even Hollywood couldn't break it. 19 years together, 2 daughters, and a marriage that looked perfect to everyone watching. But something was quietly breaking inside, something no one could see. Nicole Kidman is a famous actress who won big awards. She could stand in front of millions of people, but kept her feelings hidden inside. She was calm, he was wild, and together they made beautiful music, until the music stopped. For almost 20 years, she stayed with Keith Urban, a country music singer. She helped him through really hard times when he was sick and trying to get better. Their love wasn't about being fancy, it was about surviving together. But even the strongest promises can break when staying quiet becomes too heavy. After 19 years, Nicole decided to speak up, not because she was angry, but because she needed to tell the truth. Sometimes the hardest thing to say isn't about someone doing something wrong. It's about letting go of something beautiful before it hurts too much. This isn't gossip or drama. It's a story about how love, even when it's real and pure, can fall apart when people give too much of themselves away. Nicole's childhood. Long before everyone called her a star, Nicole Kidman was just a shy girl who practiced talking to herself in mirrors. She was born on June 20, 1967 in Hawaii, but her parents were from Australia. When she was 4, her family moved back to Sydney. Her dad was a smart doctor who studied how the brain works. Her mom was a nurse. They loved her, but they were strict and serious. Nicole was very tall for her age, and other kids teased her. Instead of playing outside, she stayed inside reading books and imagining different lives. "I used to watch people more than talk to them," she once said. When Nicole was a teenager, her mom got very sick with cancer. Nicole had to take care of her little sister and help around the house. She learned that strong people sometimes look very quiet and gentle on the outside. At 16, she found acting. On stage, she could be anyone, brave, loud, free. Her teacher said she speaks through silence. Every character she played was a way to say things she couldn't say in real life. Starting her career, Nicole studied dance and acting. She got small TV jobs to help her family. Even when cameras started noticing her, she still walked home barefoot, afraid to believe she could really be famous. By the time she was 16, the quiet girl who was scared to speak was slowly stepping into the spotlight. Acting wasn't just fun, it was how she survived. Her first big movie was Bush Christmas in 1983. But it was dead calm in 1989 that made Hollywood notice her. She wasn't shy on screen anymore, she was powerful. That's when Tom Cruise saw her. When they met on the set of Days of Thunder in 1990, it was like fireworks. He was the biggest movie star in the world, confident and full of energy. She was quiet and mysterious. Within a year, they got married. The tabloids called them the golden couple. But behind closed doors, Nicole felt like she was disappearing. She was only 23 and suddenly married to one of the most powerful men in Hollywood. "I lost myself," she later said. For 10 years, she stood beside him, smiling for the cameras while a quiet part of her faded away. When their marriage ended in 2001, the world thought it was heartbreak. But for Nicole, it was a new beginning. "Sometimes the greatest act of love is letting go," she told a friend. Rising again. Nicole didn't run from the pain, she walked through it, and she came back stronger. Her comeback happened with Moulin Rouge, a movie full of singing and dancing. She played a woman who loved too deeply. People cried watching her. Critics loved her. The shy girl had learned to make the world listen. Then came The Hours in 2002. She played a sad writer named Virginia Woolf. The performance was so powerful, she won an Oscar. She wasn't known just as Tom Cruise's wife anymore. She was Nicole Kidman, the actress. But even at the top, Nicole still seemed alone. One critic said, "She has the eyes of someone who has already seen too much." meeting Keith Urban. Then, in 2005, something unexpected happened. At an event, she met Keith Urban, a country singer with a beautiful voice and a broken heart. He was fighting his own battles with drugs and alcohol. I remember thinking he was shy, and then I realized he was hurt, Nicole said later. But she didn't walk away. She understood that kind of pain. Love came slowly this time, no big Hollywood drama. For the first time, she wasn't falling into crazy passion. She was choosing peace. I wanted someone who could see the quiet in me, she said. In 2006, they got married in a beautiful church in Sydney. He cried when she walked down the aisle. She smiled like someone who had finally found home. The struggles. 4 months after the wedding, Keith went to rehab for drugs and alcohol. It was a secret he'd been hiding. While tabloids gossiped, Nicole did something few people would. She stayed. She flew back and forth to visit him. She wrote him letters. One note said, "You don't have to be perfect, just be honest." When Keith came out of rehab clean and sober, everyone called it a miracle. He said, "She saved my life." But saving someone carries a cost. Nicole didn't just become his wife, she became his lifeline. And slowly, love started to feel like work. By 2008, they had their first daughter, Sunday Rose. 2 years later came Faith Margaret. The world cheered. Headlines said, "Nicole Kidman finds her happy ending." But happiness in their home was built on effort, not ease. The cracks begin to show. Through the 2010s and 2020s, they both became even more successful. Nicole won more awards. Keith filled huge concert halls. Together, they looked perfect. But perfection is often just a mask. "We've learned to love in fragments," Keith joked once. It sounded poetic, but it was actually the truth. Then came 2020, the year the world stopped. For the first time in years, they were home together. They cooked, played music, laughed. It felt like healing. But when life started moving again, so did the distance. Now it hurt more because they'd tasted peace and couldn't pretend anymore. Nicole's filming took her to London and other countries. Keith toured across America. They called it balance, but it was really just drifting apart. By 2023, people close to them noticed something was wrong. Their smiles seemed fake. At the Oscars, they looked beautiful together, but they didn't speak. "They looked flawless," one insider said, but the air between them was tired. The quiet ending. It didn't end with yelling or drama. It ended in silence. By 2024, Nicole and Keith had everything: success, family, fame, except ease. They weren't partners anymore. They were just taking care of a shared past. In March 2023, people noticed how rehearsed their laughter looked on the red carpet. By June 2025, during a live interview, Keith froze when a reporter asked about Nicole's movie scenes with another actor. He went quiet for 10 seconds, then disconnected. That silence became the first public crack. The summer of 2025 was full of rumors. Then, in September, the news came. Nicole had filed for divorce. No anger, no lawyers fighting, just silence, the same silence that had always been her companion. Dignity in the end. Their final act together was kindness. They split everything gently, as if they were afraid to hurt what had once been beautiful. Nicole took primary custody of their daughters. Keith asked for nothing, no money, no spotlight. He just said, "Let her have peace." For people who knew them, it wasn't shocking. They survived addiction, distance, and fame. But you can't survive exhaustion forever. Hollywood waited for drama, for revenge, for scandal. None came. Nicole didn't trash him in interviews. Keith didn't write angry songs. They grieved each other quietly. When Nicole appeared at a big event weeks later, she wore white. The press called it symbolic. It wasn't, it was closure. That same night, Keith was seen in Nashville, walking alone with his guitar. No words, just a man walking through the quiet. He poured his feelings into a new song called Home Without Her. When asked if it was about Nicole, he smiled and said, "What do you think?" Nicole walked by the river every morning. Sometimes she wore headphones, but she didn't play music. "Sometimes silence is the only sound that makes sense," a friend said she told them. Lessons from their love. They didn't hate each other. They didn't pretend. They simply stopped performing. In October, the court papers said, "Neither party shall speak badly about the other in front of their children." One sentence, but it said everything. Respect, restraint, love transformed into discipline. For their daughters, they showed something rare in Hollywood, a breakup without bitterness. Nicole cooked dinner, laughed with her girls, and only cried in the shower. Keith went back to his recovery group, not because he relapsed, but because he needed to remember where he started. When he performed live in November, his voice cracked midway through a song. He stopped, lowered his guitar, and whispered, "Some songs never stop hurting." The crowd stood in silence. Days later, Nicole stood on another stage and said, "The stories we tell aren't about perfection. They're about persistence." Across two cities, they grieved the same love differently, but in harmony. What remains? By the end of the year, what started as heartbreak turned into respect. The media, once desperate for scandal, began to speak of them with awe. The Guardian called it the quietest scandal Hollywood ever saw. People magazine wrote, "They showed their daughters that endings can still be loving." Because theirs wasn't just a separation, it was a surrender to truth. In the end, there were no villains. No betrayed, no betrayer. Only two people who had spent all their strength loving and healing, and finally learning that sometimes love survives best by letting go. Nicole once said, "Pain names us before fame does." In 2025, that pain spoke softly, not in tears but in grace. She told Vogue Australia, "Love doesn't always need forever. Sometimes it just needs to be kind." The final truth. In the months after, the noise faded. No talk shows, no accusations, just quiet, the kind that feels sacred after years of chaos. Nicole didn't speak of Keith, not because she was bitter, but because she still respected what they had built. "Some things deserve silence more than explanation," she said. The world wanted drama, but Nicole gave them dignity. "We can't always save the people we love," she said quietly, "but we can love them enough to let them go." For nearly 20 years, she had been the calm to his storm. But love built on rescue eventually confuses compassion with duty. And when devotion becomes a job, even angels grow tired. Friends said she looked composed but glowing, as if she had finally exhaled after years of holding her breath. Keith, too, found his truth. He returned to music, but softer now. One song had a line that broke listeners' hearts. "Sometimes love wins by letting go." Nicole heard the song. She didn't call him, but she sent a note through a friend. "Proud of you, keep going." It wasn't them getting back together. It was two souls acknowledging the beauty of what once was, without trying to bring it back. Grace that lasts. Their daughters became the bridge between them. Sunday Rose, now 17, has her mother's grace. Faith Margaret, 15, has her father's fire. Together, they carry the legacy of two people who refused to destroy each other. When the girls visit Keith in Nashville, Nicole doesn't call to check on them. She doesn't have to. Trust replaced tension. That was her hidden truth. Grace isn't the absence of pain. It's the decision to bear it beautifully. In a world obsessed with drama, Nicole Kidman chose restraint. Where others might have written tell-all books, she gave the world silence. And in that silence, she restored something Hollywood rarely values anymore: dignity. To those who asked why she never spoke against him, she said, "Because I don't need to win. I just need to heal." By November 2025, both had begun living separate lives that somehow still reflected each other. Nicole traveled to Australia with her daughters, calling it a homecoming of peace. Keith stayed in Nashville, preparing for a small charity concert. When asked about the year, he told a local radio host, "It's been humbling, but that's what growth feels like." What we learn. For those watching from afar, it was easy to call it tragedy. But for Nicole, it was transformation. The girl who once learned to survive through quiet had finally learned to live in it. She no longer needed to rescue anyone. She no longer needed to perform perfection. Her grace, once seen as weakness, was revealed as strength, the kind that doesn't demand attention but earns eternity. And Keith, somewhere between songs and solitude, found the courage to face himself. "She was the calm I didn't know I needed," he said, "but I was never still enough to stay in it." In the end, their story wasn't about loss. It was about what remains when love evolves: respect, gentleness, peace. Because the truth Nicole finally revealed wasn't about what broke. It was about what survived: the humanity beneath the headlines, the decency beneath the drama, the grace that outlives love. For 19 years, she carried him through storms and fame and fear. And when she finally set him down, she didn't curse the weight. She blessed the journey. That is her quiet revolution. Grace, she taught us, is not the weakness that endures pain. It is the strength that chooses kindness when pain has already done its worst. The final scene. At 58, Nicole Kidman walks by the Cumberland River in the early morning mist. Headphones in, though no music plays. The water moves the way memory does, softly, without direction, yet always returning. She doesn't walk to remember. She walks to forgive. Some mornings, she meets her daughters for breakfast. Their laughter rises like sunlight after years of storms. Other days, she simply watches the world move on and feels no need to chase it. There is peace now, the kind that comes only after surrender. Keith Urban, somewhere in Nashville, strums his guitar in an empty studio. His voice has changed. Less glitter, more gravity. The song he plays tonight isn't about her, but it is because of her. They don't call, they don't visit, and yet they exist within each other's gentleness, proof that not all endings must be cruel. When asked once if she still believes in forever, Nicole smiled and said, "Forever isn't about time, it's about grace." Her legacy. That is her legacy. Not just the awards, not the films, not the perfection the world mistook for peace, but the quiet act of loving and releasing with dignity intact. Because love doesn't have to last forever to be real. Greatness doesn't have to be loud to be eternal. And sometimes, the most powerful confession isn't the cry of heartbreak, but the whisper that says, "Thank you for teaching me how to let go."